Good morning and welcome to our fourth edition of peopleHUB. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Victoria Brown. We are proudly sponsored by 1HR and I am the Managing Director of 1HR and HPC. So if you've never joined us before, we do meet every second Wednesday of the month and we have a guest speaker. I'm delighted today that our guest speaker is Ben Holmes, who'll be talking to you about neurodiversity in the workplace. And this is something that is really close to my heart, having had my daughter diagnosed with ADHD 5 years ago and going through that struggle in the education system and with friends and family who sort of told me that it was all in my head, and she, you know, was a naughty child, and now she is thriving and doing fantastic in school, and I hope the same when she joins obviously the workplace. And as we said, with the narrative around you joining us today, 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent, and we're still not inclusive enough in the workplace. So I'm delighted that people are here today and partaking. I'm sure some of you have got lots of experience and will be able to obviously contribute, which will be fantastic. But Ben has got lived experience. He was diagnosed with autism, amongst other things, which he's going to talk to you about. And he's turned that into an absolute superpower, does a lot. He is a practitioner and he does coaching, which he's going to talk you through a little bit later on. But before we do that, we're just going to have a very short session today of networking, just because Ben's got so much that he wants to talk about in such a short period of time. So we want to try and get in as much of his expertise as possible. So we'll just do 5 minutes where just again, that opportunity just to meet other people within the network. So we're just going to randomly place you in a room, just 5 minutes to talk to someone, because that's what, again, we're trying to do. This is a people themed community, so it's great for you to get to know other people within the network as well. And then we're going to come back into this main room and I'm going to hand over to Ben. See you shortly. So just before we start, I hope you've just had I've just had a great session then. It was just lovely to meet different people in the community. I really do enjoy that sort of 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning. So before we start, you can by all means pop in questions in the chat box, and there will be an opportunity at the end for Ben to answer questions. And he's also said if you can't get through them all, he'll follow up with the answers as well. But some people don't. Some people prefer to do this. So if you're not on your phone on this and you've got a phone to hand, if you want to just take a picture of the well, when I say just scan the QR code, and it'll take you to our Slido page today. You can ask questions on that. And what's quite good about that is obviously if you think it's a relevant question, you can put a vote on that and it'll go to the top. So if we run out of time, we can obviously prioritize the questions that you think are most relevant today. So do either. I'll keep my eye on both for you, and we'll make sure we can get through as many as possible with Ben. So I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to hand over to Ben to lead our session. Over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Victoria. I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me 1 second. Hopefully you can all hear me, by the way.
Yeah, great. Oh.
Brilliant. Right, and can you see that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, right, I'll get into it then. So, just going to talk. So I've got the chat in my way. Let's move that. I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself to start with. So my name is Ben Holmes. I represent a company called Autism and Neurodiversity Coaching. So about me, I'm a neurodiverse coach, trainer and entrepreneur as well. I'm a fully qualified autism practitioner. Got other qualifications in the field as well. In terms of myself personally, I'm autistic, got ADHD, dyspraxia, OCD and anxiety as well. Well, social anxiety and generalized anxiety disorder as well. I offer neurodiversity mental health training to businesses, one-to-one coaching to neurodivergent individuals, and I'm involved in various sort of related projects in that field as well. A bit more about me. I also own other companies that are in completely different sectors. Like I've got a mobile app game that's out. I'm working on an online gluten store as well, and a few other bits also. I've worked across many different sectors, environments. Worked in professional football coaching, professional football clubs, obviously. I've been in corporate environments, sales, general office work, warehousing, and quite a few other things. One of my first jobs was cleaning buses, funnily enough, which I actually enjoyed way more than some of the corporate stuff, even though the pay was rubbish. But because it was a lot more simple for me, as in politics, office politics, and all that sort of stuff. So basically, this gives me a lot of experience of being neurodivergent in different workplaces, and sort of a unique insight into the strengths and struggles that come with that. The first part of my life, a lot of it was sort of struggles, and then I realised what strengths I can utilise later on. I've got a bit of a cough, so I do apologise for that. So the talk we're going to be going through is neurodiversity in the workplace. So I could have talked about a lot of different things, but I picked out 3 conditions just because of time. So look at how the conditions can affect people in the workplace, sort of strengths or struggles. And then we can talk about what employers can do in the questions if you want. Obviously, we've got a Q&A at the end, has already been mentioned. I like to answer the questions at the end, so I think that's already been said. I can do it on the fly, but then end up drifting off sometimes. So, hopefully I'm not talking too fast or too slow, by the way. Autism in the workplace, I'm going to look at some of the strengths. Sorry about that. So, first thing I'll say for all these conditions is it's not the same for every person, because everyone's different. So if you're autistic, it doesn't mean you've got all these strengths or the struggles, etc. So attention to detail is one. So you can sort of look at errors or mistakes. It could be sending out emails, making sure the grammar's right, being meticulous in any area, really. A lot of autistic people prefer routines, which can have a detrimental impact in some environments. But with that comes consistency and organisation. They can have an exceptional memory for sort of facts, numbers, etc. Being different, it's often seen as a bad thing, but I think people are realising more that it's actually a good thing. Bringing different ideas, etc. And they can have an intense focus on, we call them special interests, but favourite activity, etc. Which could mean they prefer to do some tasks that others don't want to do. Just a few more. Punctuality and reliability. So they're often on time, and they're more dependable. What I would say is if they've got ADHD as well, that can be completely different. So if they are just autistic, that's more likely to happen, but if they've got other conditions, that can be different. Often big picture thinkers, help with company visions, etc. Loyalty, autistic people generally tend to be more loyal. So you might get good staff retention if you treat them right, basically. And a lot of them do have a fondness for rules. Although I would say if the rules are illogical, that can have the opposite effect. So some of the struggles that may occur: socialising, sort of team events, what I call office politics, or just all that sort of area. I sort of struggled with a few things in that sense, but then because I've got ADHD and other things, it sort of balances it out sometimes where I can then excel the other side of it. Honesty can actually, depending on the environment, could go against them. It has with me in the past. Saying things that are not supposedly appropriate. For example, if you in a big team meeting and a manager's telling you to do X, Y, and Z, and you think it's doesn't make any sense, the more inclined to say, I don't agree with that. Plans changing, that could be a massive one. If you cancel meetings or time change, things like that. Moving desks, I've had that in the past many times, but I've got settled and then I've just been moved, and it sort of disrupts everything. And then sensory overload, like lights, smells, sounds, etc. A few more struggles. So anxiety. Many autistic people also have anxiety, whether it's social anxiety or other disorders. Doing presentations. Now I'm finding this now, but in other environments, I've been asked to do presentations where I know nothing on the subject, which is just not good for me. Social cues and communication, misinterpretation of what other people are meaning. Taking instructions literally is a big one as well. Developing their own system. So basically I had this where I actually excelled in one job because I developed my own system, but then later on they wanted me to use a system the same as everyone else. I actually did worse in my job. It wasn't like I was breaking any rules, it was just having spreadsheets and things set up in a certain manner. Inflexible working hours is a big one. When I say inflexible and flexible for their needs, they might be a night owl, for example. Now most jobs tend to be daytime, so you can't always do a lot about that. But there could be flexibility. You can start a bit later or start a bit earlier to avoid sort of rush hour, things like that. So on to ADHD, looking at some of the strengths for ADHD. Again, not everyone has this, but motivation, drive, determination can often come with ADHD. It can be the complete opposite, depending on their own environment. A lot of ADHD people tend to be really driven, or the opposite, where they've just got no motivation to do anything, but with the right support they can get there. Risk taking is common with ADHD. Can be very bad in some scenarios, but used right, it can be very good to make big changes. Passion and hard focus. So if they really love what they're doing and they're really good at it, they're more likely to be successful. If they're doing something they hate, they're more likely to be the opposite. And obviously, just on that last point, you can't always do what you want to do. So it's not about just changing the whole system for them, but it's talking to them and finding a way around it. Living in the moment. A lot of ADHD people are present. Again, not everyone. So it can help with sort of getting things done. Entrepreneurism will be a real asset to some companies, obviously not in others. Creativity and outside the box thinkers. So some of them can be really good at sort of marketing, any promotional stuff, or just thinking of different ways to do things. Even if it's like in a warehouse environment, it could be a different way to, I don't know, stack things or whatever. It can bring up different things to do. Some of the struggles, and this is not this is not every single struggle, obviously. Careless mistakes. They may start tasks before finishing previous ones, so they may need help with that. Getting bored, it sounds like a really blasé thing, but it is one of the biggest things with ADHD in a negative sense. If they're bored, they really, really struggle. So it's finding the right job for them and the right setup. They may get angry at themselves for having high standards, or if environments have really low standards, they may sort of struggle with that. They may be impatient. If team meetings have no sort of substance to them, may get straight with that. They may be seen as arrogant sometimes just because they're very blunt and sort of say what they think, or if they're really good at something, they may tell people. Not everyone with ADHD does that. Being chained to a desk, I'm not saying ADHD individuals can't do that, but sitting still for a prolonged period of time is not good generally, and it's not good for your health. You should be moving every 45 minutes at least anyway. So dyspraxia, onto that. Most people haven't heard of dyspraxia. When I tell people, they think I'm making it up most of the time, which is really annoying. Some of the strengths that come with that: leadership. They can make great managers, directors. Similar traits to ADHD in some ways. Empathy is a big one with dyspraxia. They can understand others, what they're going through. They might help other people out more if they've got work to do. Might be good with strategy, coming up with new plans, etc. Problem solving, sort of business planning. Again, thinking outside the box. Determination, resilience. So they might be quite driven as well. Enthusiasm and passion. They often care about the work. They want to do a good job, and like helping others as well. Creativity. They might be really poor at some things like practical tasks, for example, but they can look at different ideas and outlooks, and different solutions. Noticing small details, so spotting errors, things that colleagues have said. Same with autism, with that one. Some of the struggles, as I mentioned, practically, they may struggle using equipment like printers, simple things like shutting blinds. They may not understand. If they've never done it before, they may sort of struggle with things like that. They may bump into things. There's different types of dyspraxia. Some are classed as really clumsy, where they're bumping into things, tripping up. Others struggle with finer skills. So if you're in a factory or something like that, they may struggle using certain equipment. There's lots of different potential struggles there. They may get fatigued a lot. Certain activities may tire them out. Multitasking, where someone with ADHD may be really good at multitasking. Dyspraxia often, they struggle with that. They just need to get one thing done at a time. Taking directions is a big one. If they've got an interview, they may struggle to find the actual location. They may get lost in their own building. It may take them a few weeks to learn their environment and where they're meant to be. If they're driving anywhere, that could be a nightmare as well. Verbal communication, some may struggle with talking, like getting the words in order. They may jumble them up as well, similar to dyslexia in some ways at times. I've not got my time on this. I don't know how fast or slow I've done that.
You're doing great. You've still got 15 minutes, so you're fine. You're doing well.
Okay. I mean, hopefully if you've got any questions, I'd love to answer them as well. So just about a little bit about the company, just in terms of what we do. As I mentioned, we do training for businesses, mentoring for managers, staff. So for managers, it could be, how do I manage these neurodiverse individuals? How do I support them best? For staff, it can be looking at what they struggle with. They may not be able to verbalise what they're struggling with as well. Coaching for individuals is sort of outside the working environment, one-to-one coaching. I have a team of coaches that can do it as well. We're actually working on a resource library at the moment. I'll put the link in the chat in a second, actually. So basically an online resource library full of information, which businesses can access as well. And we're also working on some online courses in different fields as well. So I think that's it for the presentation.
Thank you, Ben. That's fun. That's really helpful. And that you managed to get, well done. You managed to get so much into such a short period of time. I'll check and see, obviously, if anyone's got any questions, please do pop them into the chat. One of the things I was going to ask you, I suppose, is sort of like what what would your advice be today on people's next sort of steps? So you've just talked us through, sort of 3 examples of somebody, being neurodivergent, and, you've obviously explained as well how not everybody is the same, and it can be so complex, can't it, if you've got autism and ADHD, and a lot of the time it does come, you don't just have sort of one area, you do sort of, and have a few different complexities. So I suppose what we'd all love to know now is, what would your advice be on next steps? So I'm looking at and thinking, some of my clients are thinking, that it's that awareness as well, isn't it, of the education and people within the workplace understanding what those signs are.
Yeah, so I'm trying to take it all in. So basically, no, it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, what's best for employers' next steps? So I mean, there's various things you can do. I mean, obviously I've given a little bit of information about each one. You can go more into depth in terms of each condition and how it affects them. I suppose it depends what the working environment is as well, because each environment will have different challenges. Like if it's an office, there'll be more sensory things like lights, etc. People walking past. If it's a factory, it might be more noises and things like that, and maybe getting lost in the factory. So yeah, it depends on the environment, really. Can you just repeat that question in a nutshell again, just so? I think
it's sort of what's the next, what was your advice be now for everybody that's in this room, their sort of next steps? I think my understanding of a lot of people in the room, they want to take action after this. So what would your advice be maybe for them to be able to be more inclusive? So what just anything really, what would the next steps be to sort of help to be better, more inclusive for neurodivergent people within the workplace?
Yeah, I mean to be blunt, yeah, just to learn more about neurodiversity. So obviously there's courses, obviously like myself, training, etc. Yeah, just learn about, and actually asking the employees who have the conditions what they need. That's the main thing. Obviously it depends how big your organisation is and the infrastructure, but in my experience, if you actually ask them what adaptations they need, generally they're not going to lie to you. They're going to, honesty is the key, and being open in that dialogue with communication, I would say. Because many people, I've had it myself, you don't speak up because you don't feel you can, or even if you do, you get ignored. And once you get ignored or dismissed, you're not going to bring it up again in a lot of cases.
No, absolutely. One of the questions here that's on the screen now is around working from home. So I know earlier on you talked about autism and talked about some of sort of the strengths and weaknesses there, and a lot of that sort of being routine, and how maybe disruption in moving desks could be a challenge. So this is an interesting question really around the way in which your work has changed significantly over the last sort of 3 years. In your experience, from the people that you're working with, has this had a negative impact on people working from home and hot desking and things? Is that a challenge, would you say?
It does vary on the individual. So working from home, like for me personally, is way better for me. I think it depends on the condition. I mean, I know a lot of neurodivergent people would prefer to work from home, so they don't have to physically travel, they don't have to socialize as much, so there's massive benefits. On the other end, if they say live on their own, for example, and they do actually want to be around people every now and again, that can be a massive thing. They can be isolated and lonely and stuff. Or in terms of the work setup, it could take them longer than average to get their space set up at home. In that instance, that could be a downfall, because they might want things not perfect as such, but seen as perfect, where they want everything set up. Or if they're used to a certain working environment, the whole change thing could be a big thing, particularly for autistic people. They may be used to the certain setup, and then everything's changed. It could have caused them to have a big meltdown, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've just seen one of the comments here. Yeah, it can be very distracting. It can be. Yeah, you have to be very disciplined. And if you've got ADHD, it can be one or the other. In some instances, you might make all the plans in the world, but then not be able to stick to them because you've got no one to hold you accountable, and that's a big thing. But again, it depends. If you can manage to manage yourself and the discipline side, then it can be really good. So it can be very much an extreme one end or the other, really, at times.
Yeah, I think from what you're describing, Ben, as well, because I was in a room with Jane before, so she's obviously joined the group because she's a line manager as well, and I think that's so key, isn't it? What you do is, that training for line managers to understand the complexities and just the differences in the way in which you manage different people to really get people to thrive within the workplace.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just, no one plan is right for everyone. So it'd be, a tailored individual plan on work. I'll find out what's best. Like one of my one-to-one clients I have, he's got everything I've got pretty much, and he's just all over the place with his organization. He's got a few businesses, and he struggles with the admin, the paperwork, and it's all a mess. And we're sort of working on getting him to get his structure. A lot of things is getting your daily routine set up, and it's funny because with ADHD, a lot of people with ADHD hate routine and structure. With autism, a lot of people love it. If you've got both, then you have that internal sort of argument with yourself. So yeah, it can be mixed.
The other question here is, do you have an example of a situation where being neurodivergent gave you an edge over others in a role?
Yeah, I'll give a few quick ones. When I was doing football coaching, I was very meticulous with my planning. I was a manager and a coach. I was a manager for junior football team and a coach at professional clubs. Sort of session plans, I was really good at, and sort of, just the general organisation of the team. Like, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but like set pieces like corner kicks and that, we sort of meticulously went through it, which used to do the players' heads in sometimes, but it worked in overall. Another environment in the corporate sector is basically my job was to improve sales for branches, and we also had call targets to hit. And I was the top for both of them because of my autism, I would say, and ADHD in terms of the planning. I knew which branches would answer the phone when, because I'd studied it and stuff. And everyone else didn't really have a plan in place, just called whenever. So that helped me get more calls in and then get more sales in as well. Yeah,
brilliant. I think I've got a couple of, well, I have and have now a few people that have got ADHD in my workplace, and I think once we've sort of they've had that diagnosis and we've got some strategies in place. When you talk about sort of the creativity side and thinking outside the box, some of the best ideas have come from the people within my organisation with ADHD, because they've just sort of think differently and look at things from a different perspective. So it's really have sort of shined in that way. But then, sadly, having spoken to them about some other experiences before they came to work for me, sort of really struggled and sometimes being seen within the workplace as disruptive and not on time and sort of I've sort of moved from one job to another quite a lot before they're more settled, which is sad. But for me, they're my greatest asset. Really fantastic. Debbie, do you want to ask a question?
It's not a question as such, Ben. Thanks for what you've said there. It's really interesting information, and you've put some great context with the lived experience side. I just wanted to kind of feed in from that, from some experience I've had working with staff around the pathways to diagnosis, and people will identify some of the traits and the examples you've put there, but they're not yet diagnosed. And I've had several conversations with managers who are saying, well, they haven't had a diagnosis, so I don't need to do anything. And breaking down those barriers of discussions to say, it doesn't matter. They're identifying that, they're in a pathway, we're talking to them. For me, it's about breaking down that barrier of, I have to have a diagnosis to get some help, to open up those conversations and discussions from the beginning. So I just really wanted to add that to say, the biggest thing I've seen when talking to people, the person most recently is autistic and they work with data and analysis, and they're fantastic at it, but they really struggle when they're in the group environment in the office. So it was how we could adapt and work with them. But breaking down that barrier to say, it's okay that you're still waiting for a confirmation of diagnosis, that's not relevant. What's relevant is it's having an impact in the workplace and you need some help to be the best you. And just enabling those conversations and letting staff across the organisation know that come and talk to us. Let's have a chat if you're struggling, irrespective of what diagnosis or what condition you may have, can be a real benefit in breaking those barriers and the stigma around neurodiversity.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. And just on that as well, when I get asked that sort of question of if they've not got a diagnosis, what do you do? I mean, the most simplest answer for me, which people won't accept sometimes, is like, if you actually support them, you're going to get more out of them. So it's going to be better for your business. That's the simple answer. But going round the houses, I could give more detailed explanation. I won't do. But yeah, just if you're helping them more, you're going to get more out of them. So you're going to make more money as a result of that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's breaking down that stigma, isn't it, as well? And I think that sometimes there is that lack of that ignorance from business owners and managers of not really understanding. There's a fear, and obviously we provide HR support, so we have clients sometimes who will have a panic because they've got I've got an employee who's had a diagnosis of something, and sort of that they're terrified. So to Debbie's point, sometimes if they're not diagnosed, they just want to bury their head and not do anything about it because of that fear. So I think your point, Ben, and what you do is so important, isn't it? It's raising that awareness and that education so that we can signpost people, because the amount of adults now that are going through diagnosis that sort of is phenomenal, isn't it? In comparison to many years ago, who maybe haven't had that support a lot for many years. I've got another question for you, Ben, that's come up just about the recruitment process. So somebody's asked, is the recruitment process applying for jobs a struggle at times?
Yes, for a neurodivergent individual, I presume.
Yes, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm glad I don't have to apply for jobs anymore. I'd really struggle with it. Application forms generally are ridiculous. Like, it's just it's one of the things I talk about. It's so bad. Generally, the recruitment process is so poor. Most companies don't get back to you. I had this obviously in the past, and some of my employees have had this. That's just going to put off a lot of people from going for another job. If it's a long form that takes like an hour to fill in, many of them won't even do it, even if they can do the job. Basically, a lot of people are missing out on jobs, and companies are missing out on employees because they're getting beat up at the first stage. So yeah, it is massively. It's one of the biggest barrier, I think. And because generally they've got to apply for so many jobs, because they've got to apply for loads just to get an interview. A lot of them will just not have the energy to do it. That's what I'm finding. So yeah, it's generally across the board, it's really poor. I can't say that for every company, obviously. I'm aware of some that are really good. I understand why they do certain things. If you just attach your CV, then they've got to sift through all them and whatever. But a lot of it's not clear as well in communication in terms of what is needed, and you've got to. Trying to think of that word. You've got to basically lie on your CV a lot of the time just to get an interview, and that goes against a lot of autistic people's natural traits. Lying, they don't like lying. So, to put it bluntly, yeah.
Yeah. They can't fake it till they make it, like a lot of people do at an interview.
Yeah, if you've got ADHD, a lot of them can do that, even if they don't agree with it. Whereas autism, a lot of them can't. So, yeah.
Jane's just made a sort of comment to add to this as well, saying the potential rejection associated with the recruitment process can be so painful for people with ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's something called RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is, I'm not going into that, I haven't got long enough, but yeah, there's that as well. To get rejected, they think, well, I'm not doing it again. So yeah.
There's somebody's just asked as well that just staying on the recruitment question, that they work in school, so we have to have an application form. Is there anything that you'd suggest that would help?
Yeah, make it as short as you possibly can. Obviously, you can't do one-liners, and be clear in what you're actually wanting, and don't include any what I'd call fluff, like generic stuff that's not actually needed. And what do you actually need from the person? Like, if they don't actually need to be excellent at, say, verbal communication, then don't put it on the thing. For example, just use that as an example. A lot of companies add all these things on a list of things they want, and they don't actually need half of them. That's one of the issues I find. Yeah,
that's really helpful, Ben. Got one more question. I'll just squeeze in that last minute, if you don't mind. Somebody's asked, do you think there are any digital tools that would help manage neurodiversity in the workplace?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? I was just literally, sorry.
Yeah, no. Do you think there are any digital tools that would help manage neurodiversity in the workplace?
Yes, there will be. Digital tools help manage neurodiversity in the workplace. Yeah, I mean, it depends what they've got. Like, I know personally, like certain planning software can be really good. Like online diaries, things like that. Reminders of meetings. If they've got ADHD and things, they may forget to attend meetings, or reminders to join on time. Like, you've got a meeting 10 minutes, make sure you're there, that sort of thing. That can help. I'm trying to think, it's such a broad thing. There's so many things.
We can always follow up as well, Ben. We can always follow up some of these if you've any other sort of tips you've got. That'd be fantastic. Well, it's 10 o'clock, so I just wanted to thank you so much, Ben. That's been really, really informative, I'm sure, and I can see from the engagement in the room as well, everybody has really found this session useful. We are going to share your details afterwards, and somebody's asked as well about the slides, if that would be okay, if we can share the information that you've provided today. So this will obviously, as has been recorded, so we will be able to share this. If there's anybody that's not on the session today that you think would find this useful, please do share, and I will we'll follow up with obviously Ben's details. And I think, it's fantastic what you're doing, and I think it's so very important. Even talking today, and as a HR practitioner myself, I can see the full employee sort of life cycle and all of the challenges that we've got from the recruitment process right through. There's so many things that we need to consider that we don't right now. So it's great that you are really using your superpower to raise awareness and make a difference. So thank you, Ben, so much.
No problem. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Our next session will obviously be in, where are we now? We're in May, so it'll be in June. So it'll be the second Wednesday, Wednesday the 14th. Thank you, Dan, at 9:15. We are looking at diversity and inclusion in that session. So please do, as always, you've registered to join. It's free to attend, and we look forward to seeing you then. So thank you, Ben, and thank you to everyone else, and have a fantastic day.